good afternoon, everybody. Such a lovely venue and such a and still so many artificial intelligence enthusiasts in this room, so I'm really happy to talk to you. My name is Michal. I worked at Microsoft for roughly 10 years. And what I do basically, I'm focusing on working with customers and partners, helping them understand the advanced analytics technologies that Microsoft provides nowadays. And this is basically the topic of today's presentation. There is a lot of buzz around bots, and also Microsoft is doing a lot of this area, so I decided to somehow introduce this idea to you as well. So let's start about what actually this presentation is going to be about. So I will basically cover why robots or bots are getting more popular nowadays, what actually happened, and why you should also consider them as maybe valuable asset when it comes to doing your own IT solutions, your own applications. And then I will try to be very practical. So I will basically show you how to design your robot, how to develop it, and obviously there are some nasty things like maintaining the model that we've created. So there is a separate set of tasks that you need to be focused on if you want to achieve a success. And then obviously the last part is about testing. So let's go quickly to the motivation. So why we are talking about bots, and to be specific, what bots are actually not. Because quite often when we hear a bot story, we think of artificial intelligence, machine learning, or some really cool technologies. Actually, these are not bots. The bots, to be precise, are something very, very basic. Obviously, it can provide you with this channel of communication towards artificial intelligence or any sophisticated algorithms. But bots are actually not that, right? It's something different. So, and certainly, bots are not things like that. So, typically, when I've seen some bot demos, even modern ones coming from these years, you may have an idea that, well, have I seen it before? If you look at this picture, this is IRC basically from 20 years ago. Isn't it bot? Isn't it something that we try to resell once again? So no, it's certainly not IRC.
Could you please request another microphone because your English was lower? The microphone.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it better now? One. Better? Yes. Okay. So it's not IRC. So what actually bots are about? It's those are services for people, and it's all about conversation and messaging, right? So it's no different from application. It's just what changes. It's the fact that we are using different ways of communicating with our systems. So why bots? Why they are getting so popular, and why we as Microsoft and also some other vendors on the market are talking so much about bots? So first of all, we try to approach customers where they are actually located, right? So most of current users, especially young people, are using different messaging platforms. So it will be hard for those application developers not to approach those customers in the proper spot, in the proper space. So this is what our customers are already doing. Maybe not me personally, but my kids definitely use messaging a lot. And obviously it's not text messages, but it's WhatsApp, Viber, and all those different platforms. It would be good to somehow go where actually our customers are. On the other hand, it would be good to use the same sort of messaging paradigms that they already apply. So they actually, our customers are expecting this human flavor coming from the application. So even if there will be, to some extent, an application on the backend, the crucial thing is how to make it more human-like. So it's all about making this experience more personal.
This way we can obviously establish deeper connections than we used to have. Because quite often you can switch between applications, but once you have this long-term relationship with your bot, and hopefully you like it, then you would like to continue. Why now? Well, because people spend a lot of time doing messaging. So why shouldn't we use this as an opportunity for our business? Then obviously the capability of those messaging platforms is changing. So it's not, if you compare, for example, Skype from 5 years ago to the current version, it's like a completely different product. Actually, we stopped talking about product, we are talking about platform. So if you look at the API for Skype, it's really amazing what you can do right now by the fact of having access to all those users and connecting your own apps to that platform. And that's certainly not just us. If you look at, for example, Facebook APIs and some other platforms, all the market is going in that direction. Moreover, obviously technology is changing. So it's not just about openness of the platforms, but also about the fact that, for example, when it comes to natural language processing, there are some tools that weren't available before. So it would be a pity not to use them for such purposes. So I tried to somehow identify what kind of bots you may see on the market right now, and it's also a brief history of bot industry, if we may call it industry. So if you look at those two dimensions, there is a versatility, so basically how versatile our bot is. So if it's very specialized or it can do pretty much anything. And on the other hand, there is reach. So if it's very individual experience, or rather, we are going towards community, right? Sort of community at least. So if you look at this bottom left corner, we can, for example, look at bots in our cars. So the hands-free solutions that is currently embedded in most of the modern cars is to some extent a bot. You can communicate with your car, by using some commands and your voice. Hopefully it will learn a bit to your habits. So this is maybe not something very versatile because it's very focused on this narrow set of functions, and it's very suited for your own individual needs, but still it's to some extent a bot experience. Then what comes after, obviously we may talk about extending the reach. So why don't we simply create a set of specialized bots that will be, again, quite often connected to already existing services, but the number of customers will be much bigger. So this is what I call utility bots. Then, when it comes to the next wave or the next generation of bots, we can talk about personal assistants. So this is basically the place where either Cortana or Siri or some other assistants, they are not bots anymore, they are actually meta bots, because they are able to communicate with multiple bot APIs underneath. This is the place for those personal assistants. And then what may happen, or happens already, you may know this picture. This is our famous project from this year, TAI. I called it High for Collective Intelligence. So again, this is very general, but moreover, we are trying to collect experience coming from multiple users. So if you know the story, you may call it that Microsoft failed, but actually it was a very interesting experiment for us. Just providing an open-minded bot, free to learn from anybody who starts this conversation, was extremely useful for us to better understand how people work and what people actually expect from this sort of experiences. So you can see that this is also a brief history from the past of the bots towards the future. And obviously, that doesn't mean that if you are starting now, you should just focus on either these assistants or collective intelligence. That's certainly not the case, and I will talk about it in a few minutes. So the first, probably the most crucial part when it comes to creating your own bots is obviously bot design. What does it mean? Actually, it's no different from designing, let's say, software application. Obviously, the way you do it is a little bit different, But it's a process that you need to consider and spend a significant time doing it. Otherwise, you will fail. So let's say you'd like to build a bot. What actually you need to start with? Obviously, you need to start with some sort of idea. And I'll leave it up to you to generate those ideas, because this is not up to us to help you do it. This is basically your business advantage. But there are certain ways of thinking about bots, especially when it comes to interaction with bots. So if you are creating mobile app, you have probably some interaction designer or UX designer. It's very similar to what we are actually expecting from the bot designer. Actually, it's a little bit more complex, because you need to be more versatile. And this field is still kind of messy. There are not a lot of best practices or experiences or history where you can rely on. So the basic interaction is very simple, right? You simply ask for something and receive response. So it's, frankly speaking, to some extent, quite valuable, especially when it comes to what we call need for helper scenarios. So you have very specific needs. You just ask for some assistance, and you will receive an answer for that. Obviously, things quite often get complicated, so we may think of, at least to some extent, basic hierarchies. So instead of having just a single question and one answer, it might be a series of questions, because for some reason you weren't specific enough. So to get all those details, bot needs to maintain this conversation with you. In this case, what is actually expected from the bot, the first one actually doesn't require any sort of session state. So if you're doing any web applications or mobile apps, you know what sessions are. So the first one is basically stateless. There is no need to maintain the status of the conversation. Here, at least to minimum extent, we need to maintain this state. And then, obviously, things may get even more complicated. So we call it waterfalls or waterfall conversations. So you basically provide bots that is capable of doing multiple functions, and then you need to craft all those dialogues separately. So if you've ever done an IRB system, or most of you have used IVRs in your life, you know how it works. You are basically, you need to design certain conversation paths, and this is something that is required here. So for that scenario, obviously this state or session plays a crucial role, because you need to understand at what stage our conversation is, what kind of data have we collected, and how actually for example, cancel the conversation or commit certain transaction. So those are the basic interactions that we see. Obviously, there is some ultimate goal. So most of you, if you think about bots, you'd like to have full human-like experience, and for that, it definitely requires a lot of skills. And I would not recommend starting with this approach from the when it comes to your first project. But still, there is a lot of navigation that needs to be maintained, and that's something that we need to be aware of as well. So, what is actually important? Obviously, start with customer problem, or your problem that you're trying to resolve. Do not think of, bot as some cool technology that they would like to play with. Otherwise, you will end with those demos that I will present to you. They are not very spectacular, so they prove that the technology works, but there is no business context behind it. Another thing is, what should be conversational? That means basically that it's not magic. Someone needs to write those responses, or those questions, those dialogues that will be exchanged with your customers. Who is actually writing those dialogues is extremely important. So we actually have professional script writers in Microsoft to do it, for example, for Cortana. You can see it on YouTube, for example, making jokes with Cortana, right? So there is a set of people responsible for managing this content. And most likely, when it comes to your business, you should look for those people from those areas. So if you're, for example, working, I don't know, in call center, just try to approach call center employees and look at how they are basically maintaining the conversation. And take a few of them that are really clever and have very good results, asking them for help. They will basically support you in this case, should support you in this case. Then Woodstock, but it's actually the backend, the business logic that makes the difference. So no matter how good your bot would be, it's still about the content. So without this business problem or business challenge or idea, there is no need to have bot. Or you are just targeting some teenagers that have a lot of free time and want to chat with some artificial guy. And the last one, handle the exceptions carefully. This is something that is quite different from the typical applications, because obviously you know how to handle exceptions when you are writing your own software systems, but it's quite easy. You can basically raise some message, pop up some window, say, okay, that's not going to work. Here we are actually expecting something more personalized. So error message number 201 will not be sufficient, right? People will basically will be scared with such things. So also the exception handling needs to be treated very carefully. Okay, so those are a few hints how to start thinking about designing your bots. Let's talk about how can you actually do something with technology. So what actually we expect? We have customers, and we have probably already existing system or our own application. So the basic goal is to establish additional channel of communication beside browser, beside mobile experience, something that would make our customers more attached to our business. So we would like to put bots in the middle. What it actually means, we need to define actually where our customers are spending their time. So most likely they are not all using the same communication channels, the same messaging platforms. Not everyone is using Skype, not everyone is using Facebook. So it would be good to somehow abstract it from the application itself, from the bot itself. So this is basically what we, at least me as a developer, would expect. To have some sort of piece of code that will be customized or provided by the developer, and also some other piece that will actually be abstracted from it. So this is the integration piece that I would not like to rely on, because otherwise I would need to deal with all those different APIs that those messaging platforms provide. Moreover, there is a lot of discussion about natural language processing. As I said, this is one of the crucial things why bots are getting so popular. But it would be good not to do it from scratch. So there's a need for having some sort of at least out-of-the-box solutions. And so this is basically what Microsoft provides right now. And you basically can look at it from two different perspectives. So when it comes to this coded behavior and integration, there is a thing called Microsoft Bot Framework that I will showcase in a minute. And when it comes to natural language processing, specifically in this area, there is one service called Louis that I will also demo in a while. So, very quickly, what Bot Framework is right now. It's actually a platform free of charge, very open, because the code is available on GitHub, you can download it yourself. What it does three major things. So there is a developer portal, so a bunch of documentation to get you easy start. So you can register your bot, you can connect with multiple platforms, you can publish obviously your bot, monitor it after all. So for example, we provide multiple connectors to most popular platforms like Skype, Slack, Facebook, text messages as well. So basically, it's up to the platform to solve it for you. On the other hand, most of those platforms have some specific functionalities. So you can see some extensions to the classical text messages exchange. So for example, there is right now what happens a lot in this industry is also providing some rich content like pictures or even some controls embedded in the chat window. So we try to normalize it and standardize this approach. So for example, if you write it once, it will work on top of all those platforms. What else? We also provide embeddable web chat control, which is still very common. So if you'd like to have your chat or your bot embedded on some website, you can obviously use bot framework for that. And for those of you who are maintaining those platforms or are lucky enough to build your own messaging platform, it's also open for that. So if you want to become a provider for this platform, there is this direct Python API for you as well. On the other hand, from the developer's perspective, there is this set of SDKs. We are now focused on .NET, obviously, and also Node.js for those of you who are not using .NET framework for any reason. As I said, it's fully open source. A lot of examples and samples are available on GitHub. We also provide an emulator, which is good for offline purposes. You don't need to be connected to your bot all the time. And the last thing is bot directory. So there is a set of bots available. You can look at existing examples. Actually, those are, in most of the cases, far more than just a basic example. So those are commercial bots that have been built using bot directory. And obviously, we encourage developers to participate in this community. So it's very easy once you publish your bot to move to bot directory and monetize on it, for example. So how do you output the code? As I said, either C# or Node.js examples are provided out of the box. We actually cover all those scenarios that I've mentioned. So we focus on conversations, we focus on dialogues, which is basically a set of messages that will be extended between the user and your bot. We support multiple types of dialogues. So some of them are pre-built. So for example, there is a dialogue that deals with asking for numbers or limited number of choices, etc., etc. So instead of talking, let's maybe prove that it's working. And let's start with the first demo. It's over here, not very visible, so let me make it larger. Is that okay? Okay, so I thought that it would be good for me to also learn something new, so this is the first time I'm using Node.js. So sorry for hardcore Node.js developers in the room, I'll do my best. Node.js demo 0. Okay, so my first code is running already. So what I can do, I can simply say, for example, hi, hello world. Hello world. Boring. Sorry, this is the most basic demo of bot framework, right? This is basically what it's supposed to do when it comes to hello world. Not very impressive, right? So let's maybe switch to demo number 1. Okay, so something seems to be running. And this time I'm actually opening bot framework emulator. So this is the way to communicate with your bots, even remotely. Let's try it once again. Hi. But this is supposed to be developer experience, as you can see. And actually, I am right. There are some errors happening. So you can see what actually happens. In the backend, we are actually exchanging a set of JSON messages. Obviously, there won't be a proper presentation without failed demos, so this is the one. Hopefully, this is the last one for today. Just to give you a very brief idea what actually happens in the backend. This is the demo number 0, so the command line. We actually create a connector called console connector. So you can guess that this basically relies on just console information exchange. We are registering our bot, which is called which is basically a universal bot class. And then we are defining this dialog, very basic one. You can see that there is no interactivity. Actually, all the time it will respond with hello world message. So this is basically how the most basic bot could look at. Let's switch to the demo number one, the one that has not worked very well. Hopefully it will not scare you off too much. You can see that basically the whole bot logic is the same. So we once again have universal bot, but instead of console connector, we are using chat connector. Chat connector that will basically rely on the REST server that has been created in some previous lines. So we are using RESTify here to host this bot locally. That's basically the basic idea. Okay, so let's look at demo number two. And I'm crossing my fingers that this time it will work. In the meanwhile, we can have a look at the code example that is behind that demo. And what is interesting here, we are actually starting to maintain the state. So this is how we build the dialog that will consist of more than one message and more than one response. Actually, this is this waterfall example. So there is a series of messages that will be exchanged with our user. We start with the basic prompt. So what is also important, typically all those bots expect user interaction first. So you basically need to nag the bot, say hi, hello, whatever, and then it basically starts running. So it will never spam your inbox or your chat window. So you can see basically that we are starting with basic prompt, asking for the name, and then we are actually maintaining the state. As you can see that there is this session object with user data that will basically collect all the relevant messages here. So we are saying, okay, hi, your name, how many years have you been coding? So we are asking for your coding experience, etc., etc. So we're going through this workflow, and then the basic outcome is we are trying to respond with all the data that we've collected in the session. So this is very similar to what you would do with a basic application, but that's one of the ways to deal with more complex dialog structures. Okay, so let's see if this time my demo will work. Okay, as we are running out of time, I'll encourage you to meet me during the break, and I bet it's gonna work, because that's normally what happens. So let's continue. You see basically the code idea behind that. And then obviously the next question arises. Once we have the idea, and once we have the basic code, how to make it more natural, and how to actually provide some business logic into the bot. So what we are actually providing as Microsoft is a set of cognitive services that can help you with that. There are a lot of them available. So you can obviously go with our machine learning algorithms, Azure Machine Learning Studio. But what is actually important is this part. So there's a set of pre-built cognitive services that can help you build, for example, more natural conversation with your bot. So what are cognitive services? It's basically a set of APIs, again, that can be very easily connected to your bot, that will deal with following areas: vision, speech, language, knowledge, and search. I don't have time to go through all of them, obviously. Let's just focus on language processing, because this is the most relevant from the bot perspective. Cognitive services, because they are flexible, easy, and most of all, to some extent, free of charge. So once again, we can simply connect to them and make use. Cognitive services. The most important thing when it comes to cognitive services is talking, right? So natural means of conversation with your audience. One of the cognitive services that we provide is called LUIS, which basically stands for Language Understanding Intelligence Service. It basically is a set of functions that help you build a language understanding model. How it works, basically, that's very simple. You define a set of concepts. Those concepts are typically a set of actions in your application. So, for example, get info, or help, or any verb that you can imagine that will be translated to certain operation in the application. And then, obviously, we do not assume that our users will know those verbs, those words. So we provide examples, and by that examples, we will learn our model, or actually this model will be trained by itself, also during this active learning process. So even if the model is running, it will be still actively retrained based on the data coming from our users. So it starts with defining your entities and intents. You can see some of those as an examples here. So for example, those are entities: departure city, arrival city, departure date, return date, right? So you may guess that this is the bot dealing with travel reservation system. On the other hand, we've got one intent, which is basically book a flight. You can have obviously multiple intents and multiple entities. And then we are providing those examples. So this is a common example that comes from our user. I want to go to Paris from September 25th to September 29th, or book me a flight. So actually we need to translate those phrases, those utterances, to those entities and intents. We can do it ourselves. So typically we start with learning our model based on the data that we provide as developers or our testers. But then, after that, we can wait for the feedback coming from users and help our model to retrain. So this is basically how the model looks like. You can export it to, once again, a JSON file. You can see, for example, that customer is providing this phrase, news about flight delays. So we need to somehow connect those words to a set of intents and obviously some entities. So this is basically the outcome of the model, what Louis has provided to us. You can see that it found one entity called flight delays, which is correct. And also it tries to identify our intents. So the most likely one is find news. News about flight delays basically recognizes as find news. So it has a score of 99%. There are also some other intents like read news, share news, so that's basically also scored, and obviously the one that has scored the best will be applied in this case. So this is the UI for the Louis. You can register on the Louis page, and you can quite easily look at those intents that have been created. So you can see, for example, start activity, stop activity, and some others. And obviously there is one entity called activity type. And this is a list of examples coming from our users. And then we can also manually try to make our model more accurate. So if, for example, the model is wrong, we can manually choose the proper intent for this one. So we don't have time for demo. We can, as I said, do it in the break. The last thing, or second to last thing, is obviously hosting your code. Actually, it's very easy. All you need is a compute, right? So there needs to be some sort of internet-enabled connection to your bot, and that's basically it. So, you can host it basically anywhere. Obviously, Microsoft Azure Platform fits here very well because we have Azure App Services, Azure Functions that give you a very nice deployment experience. So once you create such a bot, you can very easily migrate it, maintain the code inside Azure, etc., etc. So how the deployment process looks like? This is basically the web service that we've created, and you are hosting it either in Azure or some other place. Then you need to connect your bot through Bot Connector. So this is the platform that we provide as well. And then you register also. So first thing you need to do is register your bot. Then you need to connect it to at least a few of those channels. And that's basically it. This is how the end user experience looks like. So this is basically bot framework platform. Then you can see one of those bots registered already. So we've provided some details. And then you just select the channel that you'd like to use. So in this case, by default, it's always Skype and web chat. you can see basically also how to embed controls like that on your page, for example. And if you'd like, for example, add Facebook, just follow the instructions from the page, and basically your bot will be available on Facebook as well. The last thing, testing. So it's not over. Typically, your first bot will fail. So don't be discouraged by that. Just try to understand what actually you're trying to achieve. So what are your success criteria? Is it increasing customer engagement? So how long your customer will spend doing those conversations? Or maybe approaching new customers. For some reason you reach market saturation, you would like to move to some other markets. One idea might be to use bots for that. Or maybe just learning and gathering feedback, because this is also very important. How basically those people interact with bots, what they are actually expecting. So this may also be one of the goals here. And then once you have those success criteria defined, try to turn it into precise metrics. Is it average time of conversation? Or maybe conversation to closed case ratio, if you are dealing with some call center bot in this case. And obviously measure as much as possible. This is obviously crucial. I won't present example bots. You can go to bot directory, see how many of them are already existing. If you're using Skype, you can also look at Skype bot directory, because this is already embedded. You can basically connect to those bots and start chatting. What's next? So to summarize, find realistic scenarios, something that will not be overwhelming and not too ambitious. Write your first bot. It's actually very easy, so it doesn't require a lot of skills when it comes to technology. It's rather the whole idea and thinking behind that. Register your bot, so make it running and promote it. And then rinse and repeat. So as I said, probably the first one will not be super successful, but if you continue and be persistent, probably you will achieve satisfaction. One thing I'd like to mention at the very end, there is a set of courses that we provide for those of you who are interested, so this is like a sort of call to action for you. We provide currently, I believe, 15 different modules that are available on top of EDX platform. So those are free of charge. They do not obviously cover just bots, although bots are included here. But when you are thinking about data science and you are either beginner or intermediate user, you can very easily start with those courses. You can see basically that we are focusing on R and Python altogether. And we are also providing some nice certificate if you finish that. What else? There are some resources I'd like to share. You will find it in the presentation afterwards. So obviously the homepage of the framework, SDK on GitHub, blog, Louis service, and some nice examples like Azure bots. So we, for example, provide bots to maintain the whole cloud infrastructure. Instead of using command line interface or portal, you can also do it from bots. So for example, start or stop your virtual machines, etc. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michal. That was very you guys would like to ask a question?
Hello. I have a clarification regarding, I want to clarify regarding the slide you had about news on flight delays. Could you please return to that slide, the blue one? Yeah, this one. So, what was that intent none with the score of?
Intent none is provided by default. So it's like a default intent if nothing fits. So if
it's just a phrase with no intent or something.
So none here, basically, most likely this model was not well trained or trained enough. Because obviously this none it's actually not that high, it's just 7%. So obviously it's rather fine use and not none. So, but still, once the model will be exposed to multiple users, you should expect that this none value should go down. If it will notice that for some reason it goes up or stays at the high level, you need to provide more accurate examples or maybe redefine the intent.
Okay, thanks.
Hi. My question is about what solution
Microsoft offers when, for example, when the platform analyzes the language, for example, we have some specific output. For example, the flight delays or book me a flight. So how, if there is any IE that will solve my problem, like you have an options, or you need to say, I have these options, and I as a developer should analyze and then apply some options, or Microsoft will choose something.
So there are multiple ways of dealing with that. As I said, most of those communication platforms are going towards richer forms of messaging. So if you would really insist on having very accurate answers, you can just provide a set of, let's call it, buttons or controls that will give your users a limited choice. But that's not very natural, at least in my understanding or how I experience the bots. So you can obviously try to guess, and by such models you can actually gather the information. Okay, what actually is the location that you're looking for, and for example, destination location. So by providing multiple examples, you can help this model to be more and more accurate over time. It takes time, but it's, I think, worth it. And one of the beauties of LUIS is that you can also connect to Cortana, meaning the whole gathered knowledge. I was talking about this collective intelligence. So this is one of the beauties, that you can look at what people are actually throwing into chatbots, right? And what kind of crappy messages you need to deal with sometimes. And then you can actually try to be either accurate or say, okay, this is just a trash or garbage, leave it away.
So, like you say, if I will try to use Cortana in addition, it will allow me to extend some models and the app analysis, and Cortana will allow me to use extension in means.
Yes, so I didn't mention that, but LUIS currently doesn't support all the languages. It does support, I think, not three, but 6 major languages. So you can obviously apply this idea to any language, but if you'd like to have this sort of extensions, most likely it's good when it comes to English, German, Chinese, etc. And what that means actually, for example, we provide embedded entities for example, numerical values or calendar values. So if somebody provides some dates, you don't need to worry about how accurate would it be, because actually it's coming out of the box. So if somebody would say, okay, I'd like to have a flight in 2 days, it's up to Cortana to convert it to, okay, let's take the current date plus 2 days, and that's basically it. So.
Okay, next question.
It's about monetization. You said that you will get some satisfaction, but what about monetization? How to get money?
Very good question. Unfortunately, I have no answer to that. And frankly speaking, after a few experiments that we've done together with our partners, I would not start a discussion with immediate new money revenue stream that will appear, right? That means that basically it's like an extension. It will help you achieve better customer satisfaction. But if you start just thinking about money, it will be quite hard to achieve it in the short term. So we do not charge for bot framework, at least for now. Most of those services are still available to some extent, as I said, for free. So the business model behind, up to you. You can, for example, go through what directory, see what kind of companies are using it already. So you can see, for example, Skyscanner or Chipmunk or some others. So they simply treat it as yet another way of communicating with the users. It's nothing new.
Okay, guys, thank you for questions. I'm sorry, we are around our time. Please go to Michal during the lunch. Maybe that questions. Okay, thank you, Michal.